Why men cheat, mostly clear. Now we're talking about on average, because people can
Sure.
cheat for a variety of different reasons. But on average, men cheat because they have this desire for sexual variety. And so you see this in some clear cases, like to pick an older example, Hugh Grant
Oh,
was
yeah.
with Elizabeth Hurley, drop dead gorgeous model, actress, whatever. And then he's caught, having sex with a prostitute on the street in LA. Like, what's going on? He's not. He's basically trying to satisfy this desire for sexual variety, and people look at that and think he's crazy because he's with this gorgeous woman. What is he doing? But that's not that atypical, and because a primary reason for men cheating is this desire for sexual variety. It's not because um, she's better looking or higher in mate value. It's just that she's different.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Whereas for women, the primary motivation, and not the exclusive, but the primary motivation for affairs is because they're unhappy in the relationship and they're looking to either get out of a bad relationship or an unsatisfactory relationship or looking to trade up in the mating market. So this is the mate switching hypothesis.
Is it true that a saying that men cheat to stay and women cheat to leave then?
Well, I would say the second is definitely true. Women cheat to leave it. Now we're talking about like about 70 to 80% of women.
Okay.
This is what studies of women who have had affairs. This is what their primary motivation is to get out of a relationship or trade up or segue back into the mating market.
Mm.
Whereas men, it's more like Chris Rock had this quip of like, men are only as faithful as their opportunity. Now, that's an exaggeration because there are
God, I hope
plenty of men
so.
who have opportunities who don't act on them.
Right.
It's true of men and women. We have opportunities and we choose not to act on them for a variety of reasons. It could be don't want to jeopardize the marriage, don't want to sacrifice my reputation in the eyes of other people, don't want to, variety of reasons why people choose not for religious reasons or moral reasons or
Yeah,
whatever.
let's hope that integrity comes into the into
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, so like a prime example was, and you may be too young to remember this, but there was with President Jimmy Carter. He did an interview at Playboy magazine a long time ago, and he said he had lust in his heart, and that he had committed many adultery many times in his heart. But as far as we know, he never acted on that. But he confessed to what I think most men have is they have this ferocious desire for sexual variety, and but some act on it when the opportunities are there or the costs and risks are low, but many don't act on it. In his case, as far as we know, he never acted on it and was always 100% monogamously faithful to his wife Rosalind.
I don't think it's the right question to ask, why do men want variety? I'm gonna ask instead, what is it that, each gender wants sex for, and what does it mean to them? Like, what is the sexual psychology for a man versus a woman that would lead to then, of course, why men want variety?
Well, that's a great question and a deep question because I mean it gets to the heart of our evolved sexual psychology. The reason that men have this desire for sexual variety, and it's different for men than women, and it's not that women have zero desire for sexual variety. It's just that it's low on average compared to men, and there's so many examples of this. So just descriptively, a man can walk down a city block and pass half a dozen women and have thoughts about sex with that woman within a span of 2 minutes. And I don't think women do. Now, women do become attracted to, so I hear, even women who are in stable relationships, that John Hamm playing Don Draper, people become infatuated with Don Draper or George Clooney, or I don't know who, I guess some younger Ryan Gosling in
Sure, I can think of a few. Yeah.
yeah. Or historic, I don't know where Brad Pitt stands, but he used to be a
Uh-huh.
sex symbol, and women just like would croon over Brad Pitt and perhaps have sexual fantasies about Brad Pitt. But but it's just like it's just still a massive difference. And this shows up this sex difference. It shows up in things like number of sexual thoughts per day. Men have many more than women. Number of different people you have sexual thoughts about. Men much higher than women. Um, Consumption of pornography. About 80% of the pornography is consumed by men than women, and even the nature of the pornography is very different. With men, it's just there's no plot. There's like maid comes into the hotel room to clean up the room, and within 10 seconds they're having sex. Whereas women's pornography tends to be more have some plot, some context, some romance, so even the nature of men's and women's sexual fantasies are very, very different. And this shows up, for example, in I don't know if you've ever read this, Danica, but like the romance novels, like they used to be called bodice rippers. Where you have on the cover is this like rugged, handsome,
Sure.
dashingly handsome man who happens to be a wildly successful businessman or a prince or whatever. He's like off the charts in status. Women desire him, many women, but he finds himself uncontrollably drawn to this one woman, sort of against his will,
Oh,
by
it's the modern day 50 Shades of Grey guy, Christian Grey.
yes, yeah, yeah, exactly. And you can bet who's so these romance novels. It's actually the largest selling book category in the book publishing industry. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's 95% of the consumers of those books
Women,
are women.
because men like to watch it and women like to read about it.
Yeah, it taps an entirely different. I mean, it highlights the difference between male and female sexual psychology, and
Is it
these.
an imagination thing? Because, like, as like a low level example, like you can say to a guy like, "Oh, what should I wear?" And he might not be able to kind of picture. He's like, "I don't know, put something on and I'll tell you." Like, and a girl can go, "Oh, I don't know, like maybe like a cute little black dress with, like some shoes, some like kind of boots. You like, what do you have for boot?" Like a girl might have this vision of what something should
Yeah,
look like, and a guy's like, "I don't know, I need to see it."
yeah, yeah. No, I think that's exactly right, and all the studies point to exactly that with men, the visual sense is overwhelmingly the primary sense, whereas women, it use a much wider range of senses that are involved in their sexual attraction. So
Mhm.
touch, sound, mood, context, setting, uh, and then to your point about these different imagining different dress scenarios. I mean, women are just more, they devote more time, attention, and effort to even thinking about those things, and
Mhm.
have and most people don't know this, they have a much richer color vocabulary
Oh.
than men. So men, it's like, well, there's like green and red, or and for women, they have like 6 different words for green. Well, there's teal and there's forest green and there's,
There's mint.
yeah, and then, Christmas tree red versus,
Emerald green.
yeah, and yeah. So even women have this much richer sensory vocabulary for colors. So that's another really interesting sex difference. But anyway, so yeah, so you get these fundamental sex differences in our sexual psychology, and then that they play out in the real world in sometimes catastrophic ways. And they also even they play out within relationships themselves, because if you figure, so men have, and this is maybe politically incorrect to say this, but all the data show this, is that men have a higher sex drive on average. Now, there are women with very high sex drives, but men on average have a much higher sex drive.
This is another miss because men's sex drive tends to be sort of that, I don't know, let's call it 20 range, 25, like 18 to 25 feels very high. But then for a woman, it's like later 30s.
Yeah, but yeah, for when it peaks
Right.
within each
Another
sex.
miss in like
Yeah, yeah,
mating.
in which men and women are miscalibrated. Yeah, so in terms of sex drive, ideally what you want, is a 35-year-old woman with an 18-year-old guy who's the pool boy.
If you like this clip and you want to hear the whole episode, click at the bottom of your screen.